We will move to question number 9, Phil Twyford.
Speaker, my question's for the Minister for Social Housing. Has she read the final report of the cross-party inquiry on homelessness, ending homelessness in New Zealand? If so, will she implement its recommendations?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr Speaker, yes, I have read the report, and of course I've already implemented most of its recommendations.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
Does she agree with the Prime Minister that people sleeping on their cousin's couch are not homeless? And if so, how can she possibly consider that a family trying to send their kids to school from a different family member's lounge each week have a home?
Speaker.
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister would have been referring to the definition of which used to be the true homelessness one, which is rough sleepers, so those sleeping on streets. And so the argument is, obviously we're concerned about people that are couch surfing, we want them to have permanent homes. That's something that we're delivering to, and it's something that we're focused on.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
Has she seen the estimate by Neville Pearce of Otago University that keeping someone on the street costs around $65,000 per person per year, which, with 4,200 people currently without shelter, means the cost of inaction is over $250 million a year? And if so, wouldn't this justify spending a lot more than the approximately $9 million a year she's currently spending on emergency housing?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Well, Mr Speaker, I've had a look at the submission. Officials were unable to tell me how he's come up with that figure, so there's no actual data behind it that I've seen. My point would be that actually to house them, I think in the first instance, in the first 2 or 3 years, would actually cost more. I think that's an investment worth making, and it's one that we're actually doing. And
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
How many people will her $3 million of funding for Housing First house each year? And will she consider a full rollout of the Housing First approach to cover the 4,200 homeless people without shelter?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Sorry, I can't quite remember how many people it was that the $3 million for the Housing First would cover, so I don't want to make the number up now. I can't remember the exact number, but it's hundreds, and I've got a feeling it's up to 2,000, but I'd like to check that figure for the member. There is a lot in implementing it, and it's all about, of course, more than just what the Housing First is doing, it's all of the services around it. So it's making sure that we've got the mental health services that are there, the addiction services, making sure that we're able to have longer term solutions for those that are inside the houses. So I think the 3 on top of the People's First that's in Hamilton is a really good way. It's going to be quite different doing it in Auckland than what it was in Hamilton because some of the special challenges that are there, and we're open to rolling it out further when we see the results coming through.
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
Does she accept that the only way to ultimately house the 41,000 homeless people is to provide permanent, affordable housing for them? And if so, will she commit to increasing the state and community housing stock by the 15,000 to 25,000 houses needed and implementing a nationwide strategy to end homelessness?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Speaker, we've got that strategies already in place. We've got a comprehensive plan. We're rolling it out literally every single day, and it's making a huge difference. We're housing 160 people in social housing each week when we used to house 140, for example. Another good example is just the massive rebuild program that's going on. The Minister's recently announced Northcote, where you can see more state houses coming on board. The other is the recent announcement with community housing providers, where we're now giving them access to up to 150% of the income-related rent, 50% that they can use as part of that deposit, and 100% IRR, which we've opened up to them. It's literally thousands more permanent homes coming on board over the next 2 or 3 years.
Supplementary question, Marama Davison.
Does the Minister support providing New Zealanders who rent some security about their tenancies so they can put down roots in their communities and have a secure home?
The
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr. Speaker, that's not work that we're currently looking at.
Supplementary question, Marama Davidson.
In response to Phil Twyford's question earlier, and for clarity, how many actual people, if any, have been housed as a result of the $3 million invested in the Housing First initiative?
The
Speaker.
Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr. Speaker, we've just chosen the providers for that and it's being rolled out.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Marama Davidson.
Given that Māori are overrepresented in homelessness, will the Minister provide more and ongoing support for the services that are proven to have effect for our people, such as those run from Te Puia and Manurewa Marae?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Yes.
Question